the Proclaimers. You don't know who those guys are. They're the ones that are like, I would walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more. Those guys, if you're here to see them, this is the wrong show. Just so you know. But now, without further ado, I would like to introduce the man of the hour to come out and read his #1 best-selling book on the New York Times bestseller list.
Thank y'all for being here.
You look so fancy.
So Hazel Grace Lancaster has just met Augustus Waters at a support group for kids with cancer, and she finds herself rather quickly in his basement bedroom. A shelf at my eye level reached all the way around the room, and it was stuffed solid with basketball memorabilia. Dozens of trophies with gold plastic men mid-jump shot or dribbling for a layup toward an unseen basket. There were also lots of signed balls and sneakers. I used to play basketball, he explained. You must have been pretty good. I wasn't bad, but all the shoes and balls are cancer perks. He walked toward the TV where a huge pile of DVDs and video games were arranged into a vague pyramid. He bent at the waist and snatched up V for Vendetta. I was like the prototypical white Hoosier kid, he said. I was all about resurrecting the lost art of the mid-range jumper. But then one day I was shooting free throws, just like standing at the foul line at the North Central gym, shooting from a rack of balls. And all at once I couldn't figure out why I was methodically tossing a spherical object through a toroidal object. It seemed like the stupidest thing I could possibly be doing. I started thinking about little kids putting a cylindrical peg through a circular hole and how they do it over and over again for months when they figure it out, and how basketball was basically just a slightly more aerobic version of that same exercise. Anyway, for the longest time, I just kept sinking free throws. I think I hit like 80 in a row, my all-time best. But as I kept going, I felt more and more like a 2-year-old. And then for some reason, I started to think about hurdlers. Are you okay? I'd taken a seat on the corner of his unmade bed. I wasn't trying to be suggestive or anything. I just got kind of tired when I had to stand a lot. I'd stood in the living room, and then there had been the stairs, and then more standing, which was quite a lot of standing for me, and I didn't want to faint or anything. I was a bit of a Victorian lady, fainting-wise. I'm fine, I said, just listening. Hurdlers? Yeah, hurdlers. I don't know why. I started thinking about them running their hurdle races and jumping over these totally arbitrary objects that had been set in their path. And I wondered if hurdlers ever thought, you know, this would go a lot faster if we got rid of the hurdles. This was before your diagnosis, I asked? Right, well there was that too. He smiled with half his mouth. The day of the existentially fraught free throws was coincidentally also my last day of dual-leggedness. I had a weekend between when they scheduled the amputation and when it happened. My own little glimpse of what Isaac is going through. I nodded. I liked Augustus Waters. I really, really liked him. I liked to call him Gus or Augustus. Me, I was always just Hazel. Univalent Hazel. So what's your story? He asked, sitting down next to me at a safe distance. I already told you my story. I was diagnosed when I was... No, not your cancer story. Your story. Interests, hobbies, passions, weird fetishes, etc. I said, don't tell me you're one of those people who becomes their disease. I know so many people like that. It's disheartening. Like, cancer is in the growth business, right? The taking people over business. But surely you haven't let it succeed prematurely. It occurred to me that perhaps I had. I struggled with how to pitch myself to Augustus Waters, which enthusiasms to embrace. And in the silence that followed, it occurred to me that I wasn't very interesting. I'm pretty unextraordinary. I reject that out of hand. Think of something you like, the first thing that comes to mind. Reading? What do you read? Everything, from like hideous romance to pretentious fiction to poetry, whatever. Do you write poetry too? No, I don't write.
Oh,
There! Augustus almost shouted. Hazel Grace, you are the only teenager in America who prefers reading poetry to writing it. This tells me so much. You must read a lot of capital G great books, don't you? I guess. What's your favorite? I said. My favorite book by a wide margin was An Imperial Affliction, but I didn't like to tell people about it. Sometimes you read a book and it fills you with this weird evangelical zeal, and you become convinced that the shattered world will never be put back together unless and until all living humans read the book. And then there are books like An Imperial Affliction, which you can't tell people about. Books so special and rare and yours that advertising your affection feels like a betrayal. It wasn't even that the book was so good or anything. It was just that the author, Peter Van Houten, seemed to understand me in weird and impossible ways. An Imperial Affliction was my book, the way my body was my body, and my thoughts were my thoughts. Even so, I told Augustus. My favorite, see you again? He asked. There was an endearing nervousness in his voice. I smiled. Sure. Tomorrow? He asked. Patience, Grasshopper, I counseled. You don't want to seem overeager. Right, that's why I said tomorrow, he said. I want to see you again tonight, but I'm willing to wait all night and much of tomorrow.
You don't know it, stop it. What? You
I
don't know
rolled
it,
my
stop
eyes.
it.
I'm serious,
Okay.
he said. You don't even know me. I grabbed the book from the center console. How about I call you when I finish this? But you don't even have my phone number, he said. I strongly suspect you wrote it in the book. He broke out into that goofy smile, and you say we don't know each other. Who, in addition to being my brother, is the founding editor of ecogeek.org, the world's largest environmental technology website. He's also the co-creator of DFTBA Records and the Project for Awesome, YouTube's largest online charity event. He is the inventor of 2D glasses. Which render three-dimensional movies in a crisp 2 dimensions. And in 1998, his classmates at Winter Park High School voted him Best Dancer. Ladies and gentlemen, Hank.
Uh-oh. Missing a chord. How did I do that? How did I do that? Well, in the meantime...
Hey, while you're looking around, can you answer us who the F is Hank?
Yes, Hank is what happens when you slice potatoes very thinly and then submerge them in oil about 350 degrees and then sprinkle them on top of a salad. That's so strange. What did I do with my cord? You guys are gonna get it's unplugged.
And so who the F is Hank is something that happens in comments a lot because when John says morning Hank, people are like, who's Hank?
So I
Look at that a lot, and they think it's funny.
a song after I read The Fault in Our Stars.
Your song.
I also recall, oh, John is so short. It's funny, John says that he's 6'1". I'm 6'1". There we go. When I decided, you know, when John was like, we should go on tour, I was like, yeah, we should. And then I decided that I would just put together a really quick EP with some songs that I'd put out on Vlogbrothers and some extra stuff. And this song is on there, and it's $8, and you can get it at the merch booth. And with your change from your 10, there's a jar there for This Star Won't Go Out. This song's called Video Game Books. It's an imagined conversation between Hazel and Gus, and Hazel would never write poetry like this, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put these words into her mouth, and I apologize that you can't hear my guitar very well.